Kevin Roth here of RotoGrinders, and today we're going to talk about the RG Discord. If you're not a member, you should be. It is a fantastic community and resource that RotoGrinders provides, and it's easy to join as well. All you have to do is click the Discord icon on RotoGrinders or go to rotogrinders.com/Discord. From there, you'll either sign up if you're new to RG, or if you're already a member, just click the link at the top to go to the sign-in page. Once you've logged into your RG account, you can be taken to Discord to log in there. Once you've connected those accounts, you won't have to leave the server. You can freely close out and reopen Discord without ever having to reconnect. The idea of Discord might be a little bit daunting to you, but it's actually pretty simple to navigate. Whether you're on mobile or desktop, the far left side will show you the Discord servers that you've already joined. Then next to that, you'll see the channels within that Discord. We have both free channels like Chiefs Prop Shop and our daily sport channels. And we also have premium channels like Blender's Game Theory or the Crunch Time channels. Premium members can see the difference between the free and premium channels by looking for a padlock icon next to the premium channel names. We also have a few pointers for new and experienced users alike. If you're having trouble finding a channel, make sure that you haven't collapsed the section that the channel is in. Collapsing a channel will only allow it to appear when there are unread messages in that channel. Also, we find that using the actual Discord program works better than opening it in a browser like Safari or Chrome. Lastly, if you're having trouble with one of our tools, your RotoGrinders account, or any other technical needs, you can hop in our feedback and help section of channels to get help from one of our wonderful support and moderation team members. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out on Twitter @RotoGrinders or email support@rotogrinders.com. See you in Discord.
Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blenderhead, Blender HD if you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Monday, April 11th. And you know what we do on Mondays, right? We bring in James McCool. Mondays with McCool. James McCool is the co-author with me on the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass you can pick up at theoryofdfs.com. You can also pick up the thummy thumbs. Pick them up. Pick your thumb off the floor and push that button. It helps us out. Give us those thumbs. First day of the week, rise and shine. See you guys in the chat. Suki Singh, early as usual. Real life pitcher. We got him back. Oh, I haven't seen real life pitcher in a while. I guess it comes back just for baseball. Matt Mears is here. David Calnis, Injustice 360. Card fan, Trey. Got Devin in the chat. Devin's been filling in a lot for the past, you know, that Eli's this way and Steve's that way, whatever. So it's been mostly Devin in the chat. Injustice 360 asks, are Vegas odds unreliable in MLB DFS? No. They're as reliable as they would be in anything. I mean, it's the sports betting market. And over the course of time, a long, big sample size, it's typical. Closing lines are typically pretty good. I mean, yes, they're not. Remember, these are medians, so it's like, oh, implied team total is 4.5. Well, sometimes that's 12 runs, and sometimes they get shut out. I mean, like it's the middle of a range of outcomes. James, I mean, even in MLB, right? I mean, sports betting lines, because of the I think a better way of putting it is that the more liquid the market is, the more likely that those numbers are good, and you can use those to even build your own projections.
Yeah, The problem, I will say that I think that baseball markets are, of the major sports, the least reliable, quote unquote. They're still good. I mean, they're still like obviously going to be better than just building blindly. A lot of models use top down for baseball because like hockey, we see that Vegas totals are typically like between a 5 and a 7 over under almost always. Sometimes you'll see a 7.5. It's two like really high aggressive teams. And then you almost always see that team totals are somewhere between, like 2 and 5 or something like that. That's pretty much what it is. But for baseball, we have a pretty wide range of outcomes in terms of the over unders and in terms of the projected team totals and implied run totals and stuff like that. But like you said, when we look at liquidity, when we look at how much action and volume there's going to be on sports, NFL lines are the most reliable because you get so much action on NFL. You get so much action on NBA. Like NFL and NBA lines are typically very, very solid over the course of the full season. And baseball is just not as popular. Like it's still popular enough that the lines are going to be pretty good. But in terms of liquidity and volume, it's the one that gets the least betting action, especially on retail books here in America. I think that you could probably say that, especially early in the season, it's less reliable, but it's like, what else are you going to go off of? If you build a top-down projection, it's not like you're going to be going off of, I literally can't even come up with an example of something else that you could use if you were going to be building top-down projections. Now, if you're like me and you build bottoms up, then that's one thing. And then you're trying to say, okay, well, I can build a line that is as efficient as Vegas comes in, but you're still going to come close most of the time. So it's not like it matters. My process is convoluted in that I try to build up to a Vegas line and then I come within 3% of it. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, when I could just be using the Vegas line itself anyway. So but the Vegas lines are as reliable as there is volume, baseball being the one that has the least betting volume. I think even behind hockey at this point. So keep that in mind, but it's not like you're going to be able to use anything else.
Yeah, when I was part of a small sports betting syndicate a long time ago, all we did was bet on baseball.
Yeah,
like compared to anything. I mean, what we were doing was scalping. I mean, essentially arbitrage, scalping, and baseball. This is bad. This is 2005. So this is ways long ago, and there was still offshore sports books. The biggest problem, the biggest problem to solve, I think, in all of sports betting, is two things. Beating the lines is the easy part. There's no issue with that. It's not like you could just blindly bet or anything, but like finding stale lines, arbitraging stuff, like you could do that. That's the easy part to me. It's getting the money down and then managing your bankroll. And I'm not talking about managing your bankroll as far as like in DFS when we talk about like swings. I'm talking about getting having the right money on the right books. So if you have accounts on 15 different sports books, like you have to be able to like make a $2,000 bet, a $5,000 bet or something, like within the span of like, maybe now it's much quicker. Back then it was like in the span of 20 minutes, right? But depending on what books you have money on, like you have to start transferring money around. So it could be like, well, I could use this book to bet that line and then come around and bet the other way on the other book because you get that arbitrage in between. And then it turns out you only have $300 in the account. And then a lot of, especially back in the old days, there were some books that you could do with that. Some credit cards, some debit cards work. Sometimes you had to do a Western Union. You had to send it to some random, just like send it to this thing in Costa Rica or something. And then you'd have to email them and give them the code or whatever. And then within like 6 hours, they put it on the book. And it's like, well, I don't have 6 hours to do that. So you kind of have to anticipate where over once you get used to it, you know what lines you're going to be using early and what lines you're going to be using late. Essentially, the MLB system that we used was we would bet most of the games with the late lines. So you'd get basically the morning odds, like late, like it would be 9 o'clock at night and the games are still going on and you're getting the lines for tomorrow.
Mhm.
And then betting that and then waiting and rebetting a lot of times the opposite side on different books on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 6 o'clock at night or whatever the next day. And you'll see dramatic shifts. And depending on the trends of each sports book, you knew what basically you could just basically predict the action because they were gonna move based on liquidity. These were not 2005 was not as sophisticated of a time. They weren't profiling betting as long as you weren't scalping on the same book. They didn't really care. Right. So as long as you're not if you're betting the favorite at minus 140, like don't bet the underdog at plus 165 later the next day at the same book. Because even though technically it's all part of their old liquid market, but they view it as like you just basically stole money from us.
Right.
Because it's like this, we'll bet the exact amount. So we'll we could make, $78 automatically. Right. Just based on it doesn't matter who wins. We make $78. Because you just put that into Excel or a calculator. You figure out how much you need to bet on the other side.
Mhm.
So you had to find you had to get the stale line at the other book, or like the Yankees would get pushed too much. Like you'd find all these trends. And different books had 20-cent lines. Pinnacle obviously had dime lines. So Pinnacle was typically like that. That's simply the early place you bet, but not the late. And then you just like the Pinnacle or Chris versus, and you get going Bodog back in the day. And you find all these stale lines that they don't leave up, and you have to. The main thing was just getting the money down. But baseball, to me, baseball was the most exploitable because the conditions of the games are the most likely to change more dramatically. Right, James? So like in NFL, if you bet on Monday, by the time Sunday comes around, obviously there's injuries. There's weather. A lot of times the weather is factored. Like now we're talking about 2022, right? A lot of times that's already factored in. Like the people will look at a weather forecast and go, next, is it supposed to be cold, rainy, something like that? And then the injuries, we get so much better injury reporting now also that it's much harder, especially in such a liquid market like NFL to do those type. You could still do it. It's tougher. It's not as easy. NBA, same thing. Maybe now. Back then, we would never think of NBA because, dude, back in 2005, we didn't get we don't have these accounts. Who's in, who's out, and most of the teams, if they just played all their starters all the time. I mean, like it's not like load management and all this stuff now. So I could see an NBA. It's possible you could do that. You could just sign up for as many sports books as possible, put money on. Bet nearly every game early, and then wait for the line to move and bet the other side, and you could just scalp money away. But in baseball, it's much more likely that weather shifts, pitcher changes, bullpen. Like we're betting at like 9 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, while most of the games are still going on the day of, and you bet one side, and turns out that the game goes 16 innings, and the bullpen is taxed.
Mhm.
And it's like all of a sudden that favorite goes from minus. It's a stud on the mound. It's a minus 220, but with no bullpen or whatever, and then it starts coming down to like minus 180, by minus 175, or the run total goes up. It was much harder to scalp run totals and try to like middle that. We did more on the more money line stuff. But back then it was easy. I mean, if there were 14 games on a night, we'd probably be betting on 10 plus of them.
Yeah.
And then the only time you quote lose money is if the line moves against you, right? And then you just got to, then you can still bet the other side, but now you're going to be taking a scalp loss, right? So now you're betting, it's like, no matter what happens, we lose $6, right? because we didn't get the right side in the beginning. And as long as you get the right, the right, I'm not talking about the winning side. I'm talking about the side that you close, that the number moves in your favor.
Right.
Right. And I mean, we did it for 2 seasons. It wasn't, we did it for, the first season was okay, but it just started getting getting the money around made it just wasn't worth the time. But I mean, we were making, I don't know, anywhere from 2 to 400. I mean, it wasn't a big syndicate, right? It wasn't like that much money, but averaging $200-$300 a night in found money, like not in no risk. I'm talking about like not there's no rooting interest in the games whatsoever, like literally none. Like you can just look right there. We know we're getting $238 right here because we're betting the exact right amount on both sides when it moves. That's like we get that middle, right? We don't have to get an outcome. Well, if it comes between, the run line moved from 7.5 to 8.5. So if it's a 5-3 game, we win both bets. It's not like that type of stuff. It's purely you bet on the favorite minus 140. It ends up being minus 185. You go and you bet on a 20-cent line. Like even on a 20-cent line, you're still getting plus 155. So you got 10 cents in between, right? So that's 5 cents of 5 cents of profit. And depending on if you're betting $1,000, $2,000 or something like that, like just you make 5%. There you go. Damn, done. Right. So it's like that's James, this is the type of stuff why to me, like it's hard for me to do sports betting content. Mm-hmm. Because like I don't view sports betting as caring about like what the like it does. You show me a market of cricket or something, as long as I understand how the odds work. Like that's all I'd be doing anyway. Of just like, let me figure out what books move what lines and how liquid the market is. Then how do I get on both sides and capture the money in between 2 books without getting at this point now without getting limited. Because the thing about if you did this now, the problem with doing this now, first off, is it's easier to get if you do it all on legal books, right? Here's the issue. Sorry to go into so much, but we do sports betting content here at RotoGrinders. Mm-hmm. This is help. This would be helpful for people.
Yeah.
The problem with doing that now is most of the retail American books have similar lines. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be very hard for you to find arbitrage opportunities, right? Because the lines aren't going to be that dramatic. Like FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, like the spread, the VIG between the hold that they have is also higher than it used to be, right? Back in 2005, finding baseball dime lines was easy. Almost every book had dime lines, right? The bad ones had 20-cent lines. But we see in baseball, we have 30-cent lines, 40-cent lines. Like, I don't know what how do you arbitrage? The line's never going to move that much.
Right.
Right. I mean, it could. I mean, but obviously, if a starter gets replaced, your bet is void anyway, because it's a must. If the listed starting pitcher doesn't pitch, you can't take advantage of that. Oh, Jacob deGrom minus 320, and then it's like, nope, bullpen game, and all of a sudden it goes down to minus 140, and you take the other side. Then you can't do that because they just void your first bet, even back in 2005. But doing that now, you got 2 problems. One, it's harder to find arbitrage opportunity. You could if you were also betting offshore as well. So if you were at American books as well as, who knows if you get your money type of books. And then the second thing is that you're more likely to get limited by accident. Because essentially when you're arbitraging, what you're doing is you're beating the closing line on one side, and you're actually probably not beating the closing line on the opposite. It's very rare that you could get it exactly. Like what ends up happening, this is what ends up happening. You bet the favorite at minus 140, it goes to minus 185. You bet plus 175 on the underdog, right? When it goes to minus 185. Maybe you're getting it on the way up and you're betting it at plus 175 and it actually closes at plus 180, right? Because to you, you're getting the money in between no matter what. but you don't, but it actually went past that. Yeah. If you would have waited another half an hour, you would have gotten another 5 cents. Right. So the book that I'm placing that bet on, I didn't get closing line value. I bet an underdog of 175 that closed at 180. And on the other book, I got closing line value because I bet a favorite at minus 140 and it went up to minus 185. Now you're doing this between two books. They don't know what you're betting on the other book. And they don't know, like, so you're doing all this, and maybe over the course of time, over the course of a month, it just so happens that you're betting early and beating the closing line on one book specifically more often than another book. So to one book, it looks like you're a dumber better, right? And to one book, it looks like you're sharp as hell because your CLV is so high, right? And then that book starts. Then all of a sudden now you're going to place a $2,000 bet, and it's like, no, it $600 or something, and then they start, and then that kind of ruins, like, and it's hard to, you would have to track that to make sure that you're not doing that. So if for instance, what you would be doing in Excel or whatever tracking method you have is logging where you bet everything, and then if, for instance, early, like the overnight lines, if there's two books to have minus 140 on that favorite, and bet the one that you didn't have the CLV recently, bet it on that one, right? So when it moves in your favor, it's always moving in your favor on one side. But a lot of times that's hard to do because the better line is on some other site. You have to essentially sacrifice EV to do that, right? Because you'll load up the overnight lines, you'll see minus 140 on one book, and then minus 142 on another book, and then minus 145 or whatever. And it's like, well, you should be betting minus 140, but it's like, well, the minus 142 book, we've had a lot of bad. We didn't beat the closing line that often on that book. So it's like, even though the better line is minus 140, or maybe it's on the minus 145 book, right? But that's the book we actually have. We look like the dumbest better on.
Right.
And it's like, well, do you want to give up 5 cents in order to make this first bet there, just for the sake of not having to make this the bets that we're beating the closing line on so often on these other books? So like, to me, that is the crux of sports betting. Like that, like what I've described right here, in some fact, even if you're not scalping or anything, like that process is what professionals is what what a certain percentage of the sports betting professionals do that aren't originators, right? We're not talking about people that like make their own models and are like, I think my model is better than the public's, and then try to just get on the right side of line value. Like I'm talking about, like, I really don't care. As long as I can predict where the line is going to move on books, it could be tennis. It could be literally any sport, because it doesn't really matter to me. But it's like that type of sport, to me, that's what I view as sports betting, and why. And it's the main reason why, like, I know a hell of a lot about sports betting, but what content can I can't do picks. I don't care. The sport doesn't matter. I don't care. Just get that. If you could download all the information of the past several years of all the line movement of all the books or all the like that, and then I could predict which books will have different lines at different times, then that's all I'll ever need. But I mean, it's 2022, and the books are way, way more sophisticated than they were in 2005. Let me tell you, in 2005, nowhere near. I mean, dude, we would find totally stale lines. And we would find lines that would be up for hours, where the favorite has risen to minus 210 because like the batting order of the other team came out, and like the 2-star players are resting today or something, and then like there'd still be minus 160 lines about. Like it's already up to minus 215 on like Pinnacle. And then I could still find a book where I could bet $1,000 on minus 160 because they didn't post a different number, right? So that, getting back to DFS, I mean, that's the main reason why you want sharp liquid markets when it comes to using sportsbook lines with DFS. So it's not a matter if MLB is more reliable or anything like that. I think it's more of the I think all the books are way more reliable than they were back then. So like when people ask me, it's like, well, do you use, like, for my MMA model, they go, do you use like Draftkings odds or whatever? It's like, no, I use Pinnacle or 5 Dimes or like something like that, not to promote those sports books, which if you're going to try to bet on them, you can't. As Americans, you can't. There are ways around it. Yes. So it's not like I'm promoting offshore betting, but from a DFS perspective, I'd rather use those markets. Is that what you did? I mean, I'm assuming you use that rather than like BetMGM. Although the thing is, you could, if you, because it's all going to be relational. You're going to be off, but all of your thing is going to be off by the same relation anyway.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're playing DFS, you don't necessarily care. Like in MMA, I don't put in the VIG free odds for the probabilities.
Right.
Right. Because the VIG's the same. I mean, I'm going from one book, so the VIG's the same all the way through. Whether if I have a inside the distance line of 16% and you take the VIG out and it's really 18%, well, that percentage is for everything. I mean, so someone is 42%, it's really 45%. And like, I'm not betting on anything. So all I need is just in relation to one another, because I'm just picking fighters.
Yeah. Yeah. I use offshore books when I build top down specifically, just because they're better. I don't bet on them, but I do use those to build, to actually build out the models. And then what I do is for something like the NBA prop betting tool and for the NFL prop betting tool on the site, I actually go and pull from the sportsbook API for DraftKings Sportsbook, because I know that's what people are betting on. So I give those lines in relation to what the models have been built up on, but the models have been built up on offshore books because I think that they're better and I think that they're sharper. So I'd rather use the better ones, actually build up the projections and then put those up against the retail books that people are actually going to be betting on, because there's no reason for me to use like DraftKings Sportsbook as a way to actually build top down, because they're just going off of what the offshore books are doing anyway. So.
Right. Can you explain why those offshore books are considered sharper? I'm letting you explain. Typically, I would just explain for 10 minutes and not let you talk, but I'm trying to practice letting my guests answer the questions that I already know the answer.
That's a wonderful self-aware thing to do. I'm
rarely aware of doing it. I'm aware I'm doing it and I just do it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's heavy rates. It's all good. No, we've talked about it before. We actually talked about it a couple of weeks or probably a couple of months ago, I guess. But the offshore books are where you can actually get down the action as things continue to go on. And then the retail books will look to the offshore books and then load up their lines based on what action moves off the offshore books. Which I mean, that's why you use offshore books. That's what the retail books are using anyway. So that you can wait for the retail books to figure out how the offshore books are going to move, I guess, or you can just use the offshore books, which are going to load up quicker and be more reliable because there's so much more action. There's so much more volume on them.
It's not necessarily the volume. It's the dynamic is those types of books, and truthfully, the proper way that you should be a sportsbook operator is that you have your own line. Like the sportsbook has their own origination method.
Mm-hmm.
They post the lines with low limits.
Right.
So like I said, for MLB back in 2005, like our typical limit was $2,000. Like we couldn't bet anymore on an overnight line because they weren't going to take $50,000. They weren't going to take that because they don't know how good the line is until people start betting on it. And then as they get action in, and depending on who's betting, like then they'll move the line, and then as they move the line, they'll increase the limits,
right?
Because they're more confident of the line. Now, the thing is that on the books that don't do it that way, typically what they're doing is going, we're not going to post anything until they do that process,
right?
So we're going to wait 2 hours. Wait until Pinnacle or Chris post the line. see where much as it moves, and then we'll start taking action, because they're trying to limit their risk as much as possible. And then the retail books here in the United States are the ones where if we happen to be wrong, we'll just weed out the people. Like those offshore books like Pinnacle and Chris don't weed out anyone. They use those people to make their lines.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, so they view them as a value. Like, yes, we're going to lose over time to these people, but we're getting the information cheap instead of expensively.
My favorite term with that was the owner of BetMGM talking about sharp bettors as clients and saying that the sharp bettors models were so good that they were fine with losing to them because they were basically being consulted on how their model should be ran. So they use sharp bettors to make their lines better.
Right. That's what you should be doing. Some people are not interested in the sports betting stuff. Some people are. I don't know. I never know. There's no place for me to talk about it really. So why not on a show like this?
Well, and I mean, I think that it becomes more prevalent in the next couple of years, right? Like information like this is going to be really valuable in a year when sports betting is more popular or more accepted, I guess, across the United States. I think that we move farther into sports betting content probably in this industry rather than DFS content. And obviously DFS content is still going to be really valuable, but I think there will be more betting content than there is now by a long shot. Whether that content will be good is completely an entirely different story.
No comment.
Yeah, I know. But
I would suggest if you're interested in the stuff that I was talking about, get The Logic of Sports Betting by Ed Miller.
Yeah.
And that is the best recent book that'll explain all the dynamics that I'm talking about.
Yeah,
right.
I think that there will be obviously there will be a lot of people that jump in and start making content on sports betting and talking about their picks for the day and such. And some of those people will be pretty good, but there will be a lot of people that are not pretty good. And they're going to be selling you some snake oil stuff and saying, oh, this is such a bad beat. Like, I can't believe that I only lost this by 1 point. And it's like, well, why do you think the line was set at that?
and right. And those are the people that didn't get the good line.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
If you lose, if you're like, oh man, I lost this rebound prop. I had 6.5 and you only had 6. That's such a bad beat. It's like, well, no, actually it was 5.5 at 6.
Right, you got the bad number, right?
Yeah, you got the line after it already moved. So
right.
There will be a lot of people that look at it as bad beats and look at it as like not doing well, but the people who are really, really good will know how to put that stuff out. And there are some people already in the industry that do pretty well. Like I just think that it's going to be something that there's going to be a lot more focus on it moving forward. And like me over at Paydirt, I'm already trying to put together some better sports betting stuff for NBA next season. If I run NBA, I don't even know if I'm going to. But for NFL, for sure, I'm going to have it. And hopefully the markets start adding esports as it continues to be like more of a mainstream thing here in North America. Because I would love to be able to actually bet on esports on retail books, but you just can't right now. And it's a pretty massive bummer.
Right. I don't bet sports at all.
No, I know. And well, you obviously don't need to, and you don't have any interest in actually like trying to build a model to beat lines. I like
but the point is, like, if I were to bet sports, I'd be betting in the way that I've described, not in a non-origination method. But
right.
let me put it very clearly though. You can beat props.
Yes.
No problem. Okay. You could, if you wanted to, and you didn't mind retail books, right? Like, so you're probably giving up a little bit EV because you're not going offshore. But the problem with offshore is all getting the money in legally, right? You're not supposed you getting someone else's account. You don't want to involve all of that type of stuff, which syndicates would be doing. But if you wanted to make beer money, right? So you have to put this into context. If you want to make, I'm going vacation money for the year. Like if you want to go on a nice vacation for a week, on your sports betting, that is absolutely 100% doable. You want to make five grand for the year? I think the likelihood of you success rate, I would say, is 90+%. if you simply take DFS models and bet props.
Yep.
Right. Like I could take, like for MLB, what I would be doing, no offense to James, is I would take the bat, Cardi's model. He has the statistical projections in them. Right. So you could go to the standard projections page and it'll break down every category and everything for you. And then just go to the sports books and you look at strikeout lines, you look at home run props, hit props, anything like that. And you don't have to like study, just even if you 2 or 3 times a day, there are probably tools that you could overlay on your screen to make it easier for you and just go across. It's like, well, according to the bat, you know, he's like a 30% chance, you know, a 25% chance of hitting a home run today. And if the line is like plus 350 or something, well, bet it. There you go. Now you're not betting big or anything. I'm talking about $50 a bet, 20, 10 to 50, depending on the type of bet, obviously. $100, like, and you're making a whole bunch. So you're probably betting, you know, maybe you're finding 15, 20, 25 bets, possibly. Someone different. Obviously, if you were in an ideal world, you'd be scaling your bet size depending on how much EV you have. The more inaccurate the line is, the more you should be betting. I mean, putting that aside, if you just did that every day, you could spend maybe a total of an hour a day. You should be able, if you don't clear like $5,000, somewhere between 5 and 10 grand by the end of the year in all different types of sports, like I would say it's unlikely that you don't. The problem is not getting limited while doing that. That's why you're only betting $10, $20, $50. Right. But even then, I've seen some people like, oh, I can't bet here, and I'm limited to $7 on basketball props or something like you run into that issue. But like actually beating the lines is really not complicated, right? Going around. So but to me, that's the realistic thing. So if you want to tail people's bets, like Grant is great at doing this.
Yeah.
Grant is 100% great at, and he's also great at exploiting promos. Grant knows his stuff. The problem is that you need to get the line at the same line that he's getting, right? Tuning into live locks at 2 p.m. on the Scores and Odds channel would be much better than like looking at his picks at 6 o'clock at night, right? No offense. No, it's not. I'm saying his content's good, but it's you need to get the best of the line.
There's a time limit on it,
right? There's a time limit on it, right? So it's not about like if Grant says, you know, like over 8.5 rebounds at -110, that's much different than over 8.5 rebounds at -135. Right.
Or even worse, if it goes up to 9.5.
Right. And minus 9.5 plus 110. Like, it's actually, no, you'd rather have 8.5 minus 110.
No.
Right. Or if it goes down to it goes over 7.5 minus 190. 180. And it would never be 190, but like
175, something like that.
Like those bets may actually be equal to each other. Like it may be that 8.5 over 8.5, plus 110 for rebounds, maybe the same as over 7.5 at -150. Right? You have to know what's the value of what line value is worth 1 rebound, what line value is worth 1 assist, what line value is worth 1. Like to me, those are the most important numbers in all of sports betting. Knowing how much 1 point is worth. A half a point is worth in football. A half a point is worth in basketball. Like because you need to judge the money, because you may look and it looks like oh, I could bet on this NFL game. Like I could pick +4.5 for a team or +5. And it's like, no, I'll take +5. It's like, well, +5 maybe a -130 bet. +4.5 may actually be a +110 bet. I mean, like they're different. Right? Even though it looks like, oh, I'd rather take the other half a point. It's like, no, I'd rather get the one that's the most profitable. How much is that half a point actually worth? And should I be betting +4.5 at +110 or plus 5 at minus 130. And you may find that the right thing is right in the middle, where plus 5 should be minus 123, right? And plus 110 should be plus 112. And it's like, okay, I'd rather save the half a point and bet plus 4.5 because it's a more profitable bet, even though I'm not getting that extra half a point. So how much is it worth? So you need to find out how much is a, I don't know, in baseball, how much is a strikeout worth, right? Like those types of things. And then betting before other people, right? Before the market moves enough that it becomes an unprofitable bet. So that's why, like, tuning in live to a show with someone explaining those things, right? While having Grant looking at I'm going to look through this and find the lines that are off with you on this show or something. Like, that makes a lot of sense. Just by 6 o'clock, that may not matter that much.
So speaking to that, I have my strikeout betting model from yesterday's slate, from like the main slate, not the afternoon slate. So my Freddie Peralta, and the way that I built this up is I have specific thresholds where Freddie Peralta has like a 4.33% chance at striking out 3 batters, a 9% chance at 4, 15%, 15.67% at 5. But then I do cumulative so that you can actually put it up against a line and find out like how much exactly, like you were saying, how much is that strikeout worth? So if you put the line at 6.5, that's the 68% chance in my model of hitting, which is cool. So if you put negative 175 at that, you'd want to bet the over
Right. What's 68%?
Right. 68% is like what, 185? No, that's like negative 210.
Right. I can put this on the screen. So if you're 68%, that's minus 213.
Yeah, 213. There
right.
You go.
So here's an odds converter. I have it up on the screen. You go to Ace Odds. I don't know the scores. I'm not sure if Scores and Odds has an odds converter. They should. Hey, if everyone's listening, if Dan's listening, there should be an odds converter on Scores and Odds. I'm assuming there is, right? I don't look at it, so I'm not sure. So what you would do is put it in and go, like, if you I believe, like, for instance, I'm going to go to the bat projections. I'm going to go to the let's see, where are we going? Hitters. Now, understand these are not necessarily these are statistical median projections. So just because it says like plus, it's like here, Ohtani is 0.43. Well, that's like the median of a range of outcomes that also includes 2 or 3 home runs, right? So like it's not necessarily a 43% chance, but you could kind of, if you wanted to treat it that way, I think you'd be directionally accurate enough. So for instance, if you say he's a 43% chance of hitting a home run, you could just put this right in, right? And here's the odds, plus 133. So if you see Ohtani plus 150, plus 160, plus 175, those would be profitable bets.
Right.
Right. Because you're getting the probability, the implied probability from the statistical projections. Right. Mm-hmm. So you could do that for strikeouts, you could do that for anything. If the median number of strikeouts, for instance, I could do that. Let's see. Let me move here. Go back to the pitchers. So like we have Alek Manoah or something or whatever. We can look at strikeouts, 4.26. Now 5.06 for Ks. So about 5. So 50% of the time, he gets 5. So if you see a prop of 5.5, well, where on that curve is 5? That's what you're doing in your model.
Right.
So in your model, like 5.5 strikeouts is probably something like a 45-ish% chance.
Right. And the thing that I do is I round it up, obviously, right? So I wouldn't look at the line for 5.5 as the exact what it should be. I would look at what it should be for 6.
Right.
So I haven't ran yet today. I'm running after the show, but for that Freddie Peralta example, if I had him at 6.5, so then we'd be looking at 7. I had him at a 47.67% chance to hit 7 strikeouts. If the line that you have is 6.5 and you have it at 105, that's a bad bet. But if you have it at 150, then that's a good bet now, because now 150 is a 40% implied odds and we're giving 47% on it. So you have a 7% range in between there.
Right.
So you have to make sure of these things. Like you have to be looking at it, and different guys have different ranges of outcomes when it comes to things like that, right? I mean, yesterday I had Spencer Howard. I had him at a 40% chance to have 3 strikeouts and just a 6% chance to have 5+ strikeouts. So if you have that 4.5 line, you got to have like a really, really big, like it should be a big favorite on the under, right? It should be like
Right.
negative 220 on the under or something like that. And if you have anything under that, if you're looking at like, oh,
Even
well,
if you're looking at like minus 175, which
Right.
looks like humongous, that actually may be a very profitable bet.
yeah, exactly. So like you really need to pay attention to that and pay attention to the range of outcomes. That's why I build these models up. I do the same thing for NBA and NFL, where like you can actually see the percentages of how often players hit certain thresholds, because you need to understand and look at the odds that way. Otherwise, like you can't just blindly bet based on the median. You maybe could have done that 5 years ago, but you absolutely cannot do it now. So if you're not looking at the actual range of what happens for players, then I think you're doing yourself a disservice.
But if you do that correctly, right? If you're just aware of I mean, this is not complicated stuff at all.
No.
Right? It's real, and 100% I believe it's realistic. I could, if obviously in Kentucky sports betting is not legal. Obviously I could get around it. There's ways. Right. Well, I mean, there's ways for me to bet from here.
Yeah.
Right. On there are. The problem is that, yeah, you're right. I could do it and make somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 doing that for an hour a day all year. The problem is that I'm doing other stuff. Like I'm more profitable in DFS. Like, I mean, like that's the difference of like, there's no point in me doing that.
Well, and
right now, like that, like unless I could get more volume down and it was legal, I didn't have to worry about, accounts getting closed and I'm not in the right jurisdiction or having to use someone else's account. I don't want, like, to me, that's the stuff that makes everything a pain in the ass.
And if you say that you could do this for 1 hour a day and you can make $5,000 by the end of the year, what would be your dollar per hour on that? I love doing this when we talk about like the amount of time that it takes for us to do something. I love
right. Well, it'll be 5,000 divided by 365, right?
$14 an hour.
Yeah, about $14 an hour.
I do all my work for 50, so that doesn't sound quite right.
No, well, I'm not. Why do you think I'm justifying? I'm saying why?
Yeah.
Why not? But if you, I'm not saying you have to bet every day. I'm giving broad things.
Yeah, super general.
Right, but it beating the numbers isn't the hard part. It's It's getting the money down and moving money around and keeping accounts alive. That's the harder part.
Yeah.
So like, but the thing that I don't like about the sports betting industry is that, it's like, oh, we have the locks, we have the picks, we have the whatever, and it's like, oh, you can make tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars with our picks. I don't know if I should be saying that on RotoGrinders or whatever, but like it shouldn't be it should not be marketed that way. But it's not. But I'm not also on the other side where it's like all sports betting content is, it's like, don't even bother. Picks don't mean anything. Like completely, like everything's garbage. It's like, no, not everything's, and realistically, you can beat it, right? So it's the same thing for DFS, right? It's like, it's hard, but you could beat it. Sportsbook betting is actually easy to beat as long as you're disciplined enough to do it. If you're starting to just like degenerately betting on stuff, it's like, oh, well, it's an hour before the game and I don't have bets in, and you go around and there's nothing of value, and it's just like, well, I got to get something in because I'm a degenerate. Like then that situation I'm talking about isn't going to happen. You're not going to be able to pay for your week family vacation or something like that for the year based on your sports betting stuff, right? You have to be very disciplined.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that that's where it comes down to, like, it's definitely more than an hour a day. And I only say that because maybe the amount of time that you are actually active in the sports betting and active in what you're doing, maybe that's only an hour, but you're really realistically like on call for like 4 hours, probably at least like 4 hours a day. Greg Ehrenberg, who works over at Osmo, he's fantastic when it comes to sports betting and taking advantage specifically in NBA of like late swaps and locks and people who get scratched and questionables and stuff like that. He's really, really good at it. And I started trying to do kind of the same thing that he does. And I don't have much time, but I have more time than most people, right? And what you do is you just keep your phone on DraftKings Sportsbook or whatever sports books that you want to look at, like keep your phone open or like your monitor open or whatever. And then after like morning shoot around and then like the 4 p.m. report later on in the day and the 1 p.m. report in the middle of the day, that's when news is going to come out on players. And then you can find who is questionable, who's being ruled out, who's being ruled in, who's doubtful, all that kind of stuff. And you can hit the lines. You have about 10 seconds or so, I would say. News comes out. You have about 10 seconds on a retail book to go and hit one side or the other. So if you're good and you know teams intimately in NBA at the very least, you can go in there and you can really take advantage of some stale lines, as Jordan has said to them, but you only have 10 seconds. So you have to be on call during those hours every single day, doing it consistently and being consistently attacking the edges that it's representing. Otherwise, you're going to fall apart at some point in the year. And then you're going to feel like you have to, be a degenerate and hit lines just because you need some action on the day. Maybe you missed something earlier in the day. Like, this line's a little iffy, but I got to have something down today. And it's like, well, you shouldn't do that ever. If you miss something, never try to make it back up. That's one of the psychology things we talk about in theory.
If you're trying to make money doing it, the key thing is that if you're betting on sports for entertainment purposes, have fun.
Yeah.
Bet whatever you want. Right.
I think the best thing that you can do as a sports fan right now is have DraftKings Sportsbook, if it's legal in your area, and build a same game parlay for a game that you go to. That is the nuts right now. Like, that is the best entertainment that you can possibly have if you're going to a game. I think
it's expensive entertainment. From an EV perspective, I wouldn't be able to live with myself.
It would be so fun.
I couldn't live. I can't live with myself doing that.
I have not gotten to go to any sporting events since I live in Tennessee, but I do want to go to some games at some point, or at least go. Who's the closest baseball team here? Cardinals, right?
Yeah, St. Louis, I guess. Yeah,
St. Louis Cardinals. Okay, we should go to. I should go to a Cardinals game and do some SGPs, just because it's.
Why?
I mean, I don't care about.
I couldn't live with like 40%. Some of these SGPs have like 40% holds, and I'm like, I couldn't live with myself even for $1. I couldn't do that.
I can put down $10. It's the same price as a freaking hot dog at the stadium. Like, I'm gonna buy that too. I'm not as big of a nit as you. I really enjoy the entertainment.
Okay, do a SGP with 2 or 3 or something. Okay, even that. I mean, I cringe at that also. But I mean, when I see 6s and 7s and 8s, I'm like, are you kidding? Like, that's why they're pushing them so much. Right, an 8-leg SGP that's like 40% hold. Get out of here! I can't possibly do that.
It's even worse on the DraftKings Sportsbook. On the FanDuel Sportsbook, you get like it's not as bad.
It's still that.
Dude, no, it's terrible. It's terrible,
dude. Dude, I don't even like anything. And 10% is. I go. That's ridiculous.
You just want the dimes. I get it. I totally understand. But like, if you put in anybody watching right now, go build an SGP on DraftKings and then do the same one on the FanDuel Sportsbook, and you will never bet an SGP on DraftKings Sportsbook ever again. Ever. Like, it's drastic. We're talking like, I mean, it's got to be like a 20% difference at least.
Yeah, but it's still not enough to make up for the hold.
No, not for
that's
you.
Why if you want to do 2s and 3s, I get it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're paying the vig for the entertainment. Okay, but it's not drastic holds on the 3. But the 8s, I mean, people do 13s. I go, you're nuts. You're flushing money away.
Jordan,
If you're gonna do 13, 14, then just bet them individual. Just bet $100 individually and just take that if most likely you don't have an edge on 14 bets in one game. But I mean, even if you're just flipping coins, get the entertainment of like, oh, out of these 14 bets, maybe I win 10 of them, right? Or something like that. And then you make money, but to have them all together, that's how they make their money.
SGPs are awesome.
Oh,
They're fun. I know you hate them because you hate fun. You only care about efficiency and money. And
no, but it's not fun. It's not fun to throw your money away. That's like you say it's not. No, I'm for fun. You know what's fun? Not throwing 40% of my money away.
I don't know about that, Chief. I think that especially if you're going to a game, if you're going to a St. Louis Cardinals game, one, you probably already hate yourself. So you might as well throw another 40% away. And two, you're gonna buy a hot dog there anyway, which is there's got to be a 40% hold on.
You get nourishment from it at least.
You do not.
It's like, oh, I got a $6 hot dog.
Do not lie to the public and say you get nourishment from a hot dog.
I was just at WrestleMania. We were eating stuff at the stadium.
I'm sure that was just nourishing.
I knew how expensive it was. What else are we doing? We're going to be sitting here for 6 hours.
How was that, by the way? How was your trip?
Good. It was good. It was WrestleMania.
Yeah. No, didn't the Undertaker retire, right?
Yeah, I was at the retirement ceremony, the whole ceremony there.
That's really, really cool. He was one of my favorites when I was watching things going on.
Okay, let me answer some questions in the YouTube chat. Whatever our conversation in the past 50 minutes was either absurdly interesting to some people or other people fell asleep, right? But it seems like so many people want to talk about sports betting. It's like, okay, I don't talk about that much. Here you go. And then somebody I'm here for just DFS. I don't care. Let's see. Anything else before we get out of here? Oh, Daniel Keene, 5 top 10s this week. Oh, I'm just scrolling back. Congratulations for that.
Yeah.
We already talked about this. Dave Spag says Alex Wood's not listed yet at FanDuel as a starting pitcher. We have him in lineup HQ for San Francisco. That'll all get sorted out. I mean, it's noon. We're getting to the point where the back end of the rotations, and we don't know if we're going to start this person or that person or bullpen game or whatever.
Yeah.
So they'll get that sorted. I saw a couple of others in here. Are they deleted? Oh, is it worth play cash in MLB over the course of the whole season? Maybe. I would say if anything, I would play on FanDuel over DraftKings.
I think it's really, really hard. I think it's hard to be profitable in cash in MLB.
On DraftKings, definitely. I would agree with that on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I think FanDuel is soft enough that you can, but you have to weigh it over it's one of those things you have to commit to it for the season and set aside money and say, this is my cash bankroll. And it's completely separate from any other part of your bankroll. And it's like, even if it's like, here's $2,000, right? And it's like, I'm starting day one, opening day, whatever. And I'm only betting 5 to 10%. Pick a number, 10, don't go more than 10 probably. So 10% of 2,000, so $200, right? And if you double your money and you have some head-to-heads, right? So you're not necessarily you may turn 200 into 328 and whatever. And now you have 2128. So the next day you're betting $212. You're putting in $212 in volume. And that's all you do. And you're spitting out some optimal cash lineup, whether it be from the bat projections, the RotoGrinders projections, aggregated stuff. You don't want to play the top lineup. You want to play the third lineup. The top 10 lineups in baseball, dude, the top 50 lineups in baseball. Within 1 or 2 projection points is perfectly fine. Baseball is such high variance between, who do I play? Do I play Soto, or do I play Trout, or do I play Acuna? He's not back or whatever. Like, dude, that's gonna be the difference between winning and losing, and projecting between those. One guy goes 0-4 and the other guy has 2 home runs, and them's the breaks. Like, those aren't the decisions you should be like like, oh my God, what do I do? It's like, no, over the course, just pick someone, and over the course of 6 months, hopefully you come out with positive ROI. But it's not fun. I mean, if you put in $2,000 and you have a good season in cash, you'll finish the season with like $6,000.
Yeah.
And maybe at one point you'll be down to like $800 or $600 or something. And then you have to work your way up. And then at some point maybe you're up to 10,000. And then by the end of the season, you're down. It's like if you could triple your bankroll at 10% per slate, I would consider that to be a very good season.
Yeah.
Right. If you want to do something like that, but you have to, it's a thing that you have to kind of commit. It's not the type of thing where it's like, I'll play cash once in a while. I'll play like it's better to just treat it like an index fund in the stock market and just like, I just invested $2,000 and decrease the amount of time that you have to do it. Right. I aggregate these projections and I choose randomly one of the top 5. You go to random.org and you go 1 to 5, which one? And then that's the one and you put it in. So it's like no thought process. You spend most of the day entering contests, right? Every so often. And there you go. Like if you wanted to do that, cash games, I think on FanDuel MLB, that's what I would do. DraftKings, you could probably do that also. Just that I think that the cash lobby in MLB in DraftKings is much sharper.
Well, and it's orders of magnitude more difficult with 2 pitchers rather than 1.
Right.
So it's just, I think that honestly, and I have said before that I've told people that it is a good thing to play cash games to try and build up your bankroll, but in MLB, like the variance in the way that scoring works in baseball, you can build a cash lineup that ends up like what we aim for, and like what Jordan and I always say is that you want to be somewhere between like the 40th and 60th percentile when you finish your cash games. That's just where you want to end up, like the vast majority of the time. And I think in baseball, it's really, really, really hard to hit that consistently. I think like it's just going to be all over the place in where you're finishing, and it just because those events happen and the event oriented sports, it's super correlated. So typically we say to like, oh, you should probably try to avoid a little bit of correlation, but like in cash games, you should try to avoid a little bit of correlation to keep your floor up. But because it's a highly correlated sport, it's like, okay, well, this team has a team total of 14. So like, I'm going to get like 6 of their
players game anyway. Total of 14. There's no team total of 14.
Whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, game total of like 14. So of course you're going to have like 6 players from that game, and then you're correlated anyway. And I think that baseball is just, it's my favorite DFS sport because it is such a good GPP sport. I just think that cash games kind of.
Right. I dabbled every so often.
Yeah.
Most, I mean, NBA, I'll play cash. Soccer, I obviously play cash games. Yeah. I mean, I played cash games in almost every NFL, MLB, unless you do as described and just play like an index fund. It doesn't interest it. There's more expected value. There's more ROI in playing large field Jeep. I'd rather devote the volume to that, even though I know the swings are going to be bigger.
Well, because think about what I said with that 40th or 60th percentile range. Like if you can hit that consistently and you know that that's kind of what you're building for, then you should be playing cash games. But in baseball,
you can't even do that. In baseball, sometimes your cash lineup is like, oh my God, my cash lineup is like, would end up being like top 20 in a GPP.
It could be the nuts.
Right. It could be It could be, you're probably, it's a high scoring slate because you're probably playing higher owned pitchers and somehow a high owned stack or something like that. But it's also the type of thing where if you're playing cash games, whatever, if you want to call it cash games, if you know that you're going to be more correlated or somewhat different than most of the field of cash players, it would be much more beneficial if you don't play double ups and just play triple ups
or single entry.
Right. Or single entry or quintuple ups and head to heads and forego the double ups. If you go like, okay, I see the ownership around the industry. People are going to play, on DraftKings, this pitcher and this SP2, and they're probably going to pay down a catcher here They're going to play Mike Trout there. They're going to do, and you could see what it is. And you go, well, based on my projections, based on the bat, based on the plate IQ projections, based on an aggregate or something like that, like within the top 5 lineups or something, here's this lineup that doesn't have Trout and the SP2, and I'm playing a 4% owned SP2, right? And then it wants to actually play 3 of players from the same team. Most people are playing, all 3 players are owned, but most people in cash are not going to play all 3 together because of the way the salaries work out, because you're playing Trout here and you're playing this pitcher there, and then it doesn't work out. So now your lineup is a little bit more correlated and a little bit more different, which means if your lineup is like 5 points better than that optimal, than that first lineup or whatever, the more owned lineup, you're going to pass a lot more people in your contest.
Yeah.
So would you rather, if you're going to come in a 23-man double up or something, if 13 to 15 people have kind of the same lineup, like 2v2 type of lineup, and you beat that lineup, coming in like 4th, 3rd, or 4th place in a 23-man double up means you're most likely going to come in like top 3 spots of an 11-man triple up, right? So like you'd rather triple your money than double your money, right? So it's more productive the more different you are from the cash field to get paid off for that difference, rather than just doubling coming in first in a double up is not good, right? Because you would have much rather been in triple ups then, because most of the correlation between double up participants and triple up and quintuple up participants is very high. So it's not like the type of thing where, well, the people that are in my double ups are not in my triple ups. Like, no. Typically it's people entering everything in the lobby, right? They're playing all the double ups, they're playing all the triple ups, they're playing all the quintuple up. Even in the single entries, they're playing that same lineup, which is kind of a leak. So you want to get paid off for it. So if you're just playing double ups and you're going to be, now there's a difference. If you don't know you're going to be different, then obviously you don't know that. And the more that you're likely to be the same, avoid all of those contests. Like, don't play triple ups, don't play quintuple ups, don't play head to heads as much. Play more of the double, right? You want to get, if you know you're going to be part of a train, you'd rather be part of a train in a larger double up. So you're more like, don't play the 11-man double ups, play as large of the double ups as you possibly can. So like if the train ends up falling, like the train can make up, even if, you're going to have like 30 people with virtually the same lineup, maybe 1v1s, 2v2s. Like you want more, you don't want an 11-man double up where 5 people have the same, you have the lineup is the same as 5 people and you come in 4th place and end up losing money, right? So you want 62 mans and 124 mans and all those types of things rather than that. So like to me, James, I mean, it's been a little bit longer episode. I view these types of episodes as more useful.
Yeah, I do too.
Do we play Michael Lorenzen on today's slate? I don't know. But to me, these are the types of things that this is how you win at DFS. This is how you win at sports. This is like thinking in this capacity, right? Yeah. Oh yeah. Great. You played $50 worth of double ups and you got $100 and your lineup did great. It's like, well, what happens instead of the $50 in double ups, you had $25 in double ups and $25 in triple ups, right? You would now have $125 in your pocket, not $100 in your pocket.
And what if you played 25 in double ups and then 15 in triple ups and then $10 in a single entry GPP and you took down everything?
Right. Maybe you don't come in first. Maybe you come in 4th. Right.
Sure.
And the 4th was $500. And it's like, okay, there's more upside there rather than now. This doesn't mean it's like, oh, you got to put your cash lineup in GPPs. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if the better you are at DFS, you would know. It's just like, yeah, my cash line is going to be kind of different today than what most other people are doing. You're still going to play it in cash, but now it's like, now I want to capture we have the 3 levers of DFS we always talk about, right? We talk about projection, correlation, and leverage, right? So if most people are ramping up the projection, not the correlation and leverage, the more that you're raising that leverage lever, you're not doing it on purpose. Your lineup looks to you that it projects better than those other lineups. It's just those other lineups are going to be more owned because people are looking at some other project, or they're going to do something else, right? They're not going to pay down twice a pitcher, right? Everyone's like, I can't trust, like you may, in your projections, especially the bat, finds these, $6,400 pitcher in some great matchup that like, it's only going to be like 5% owned. And he projects for as much as the 9K pitcher that everyone's playing.
Yeah, I get that
right?
a lot. Yeah.
Right. So you play that guy. Now you get to pay up for an extra bat. And you know that in most of your cash games, people are going to be playing that not going to be playing that. And now that you know that, now you should be in the lobby entering triple up. That's the situation. And you don't do that in the beginning. You have to see where it goes first. And then if you see that it's NBA and it's one of those slates where, 3 guys are out and everyone's playing like 2 teams essentially. It's like, what's the point of triple? What's the point of being in an 11-man triple up where 8 players have the same line?
Right.
Right. Like you're never going to triple your money, right? You're most likely going to chop the other 3 guys' money in the contest and barely even double your money, right? Because 8-way tie for 3 spots up there is not going to be profitable. So it's like, but in a double up and head, that may be fun. We talk a lot about this and more. Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass. How to think like a professional DFS player. What are the top 1% of players doing? That they're thinking this way. So it's 15 hours long. It's nice and structured. Like all the stuff that we talked about today, other than the sports betting stuff, is in the course. But instead of having to, dude, if you go back to the first pregame show and watch all of them in a row, everything that's in the course, you could get everything in the course if you wanted to do that. It would take you like 500 hours to do that. So you can have it all in one place, like a little seminar, 15 hours long. Theoryofdfs.com. And James, no, congratulations, no more basketball. Or are you doing playoff basketball projections?
I am.
So it's not, you're not done with NBA yet.
No. I am done with the dumb NBA, right? Like the play-ins and the playoffs are so easy. The problem with NBA, and I'm not going to go on a rant here, but the problem with NBA is that like you have to be sitting there and rerunning and redoing a whole bunch of things throughout the day. With play-in and playoff, like I can run it once at like 3 p.m. and be done. Like I don't have to touch it anymore most of the time, unless we have like some sort of questionable. And then at worst, I can run 2 different models and be like, here's the one with them in, here's the one with them out. And that's easy. So I'm very happy that the NBA, the bad NBA is done. Much happier that baseball is back. And once they figure out the weird time starts, which has been annoying to start the year, it'll just be smooth sailing all the way through.
PayDirtDFS.com.
Yep.
For all your needs for Madden Sims, no matter what happens.
I haven't been running Madden Sims as much.
Have you been playing those contests?
I've been playing when I run them, yeah.
Okay.
But I've been focused so much on MLB coming back that I haven't had as much time to run Madden Sims. But when again the time starts thing, once that gets figured out, it'll be a lot easier.
Yeah, well, trust me. By the time we get to like July, I'll be sick of baseball and we'll be talking about Madden Sims again.
There we go. Yeah, exactly. Oh no, we'll have USFL.
I ain't playing that.
I don't want to play it either.
So you can follow James on Twitter at paydirt_DFS. You can follow me at Blender HD. We got the, like I said, grand show on Scores and Odds, live locks on the Scores and Odds YouTube channel. So subscribe there. We got Grinders live later today with Dean and the boys. I always say the boys, because I'm not sure what 2 people are on. I should probably look at the schedule. 4:45. And then immediately after that is Crunch Time. And Crunch Time is not just for premium members. It's free. It's free all season. MLB free, sponsored by FanDuel, right? So play those MLB cash games on FanDuel. Obviously, James wants you to, SG. If you're going to play SGPs, probably I think you're right on FanDuel. Just do 2, please, for the love of God. Just do 2s and 3s. That's fine. Fine. The EV knitted me is allowing my viewers. If you want to have some entertainment with SGPs, just do 2s and 3s. right? I don't want you to see tweeting me these 10 leg SGPs and going, that's entertainment. It's like good luck to you.
I hope
Right.
that you have like 50 people who just like send you the worst SGPs you've ever seen in your entire life.
Okay, dog. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to RotoGrinders Premium, obviously, to get all the tools, lineup HQ, all the content. Click on the link in the description. If you want a combo premium package, you get $10 off your first month. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. We got 2 slates today. I'm not playing the early slate, but I will be playing the late slate on FanDuel. And we'll be going over stuff from Results DB and talking about that slate tomorrow, as well as everything. We got plenty of time for MLB DFS chatter, right? Right. All week it'll just be stacks and pictures and what do we do? So save your questions to then, because I'll answer them as always, like I do on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.